Hello, everyone, and welcome. I have been so looking forward to sharing this final video of this journal that I've shared a few pages with folks here and there, but it's finished. It's been a labor of love. And if you recall, if you've seen some of the other videos of it, it's been inspired by my daughter, who is an extraordinary young lady. This journal is called Extraordinary Women of Color, and it highlights quite a few. I think there's over 40 people who have inspired me to be included in this journal. And there's so many more, but let's get started. I wanted to just kind of quickly share with you the inside and a little bit of the process of making it. So I actually had to take this journal apart once and start all over again. And as you can see, it has about a 3-inch spine. It just got so full that it was virtually impossible to even consider closing it. So as you can see, it's huge. This is what you would call the chunkiest journal on the face of the earth. And I'm really excited to show you the inside. So I'm going to go ahead and get started here. It's held together with this beautiful velvet ribbon. And I've left quite a bit of ribbon here because, again, as I said, it's very chubby. So as you can see, just, by opening it up here, there is a lot to it. So if you start in the beginning here, it talks about the difference between ordinary and extraordinary is that little bit extra. And the women that are featured in this journal have certainly brought that in their lives and in the things that they've accomplished. I've left quite a few empty pages. This is actually going to be a Christmas gift for my daughter, and I think she's going to absolutely love it. My son-in-law told me the other day she's going to cry, and that's a good thing. But I'm going to take you through a little tour of some of the pages. This is a page that says, "Far away, there in the sunshine, are my highest aspirations. I may not reach them, but I can look up and see their beauty, believe in them, and try to follow where they lead." And again, I think so many women that are depicted here have done just that. And in fact, many of them have actually achieved the goals and the aspirations that they set out. So this page here is has a little doily pocket. And inside that pocket, there's a really fun little portfolio that has a place to write. It also has a little card in here. This card depicts a person by the name of Lorraine Hansberry. She became the first Black playwright to have a play performed on Broadway in 1959. And in 1965, she died of pancreatic cancer. She was only 34 years old, but in her lifetime, she actually accomplished quite a bit. Moving on again, there's almost all the pages here are my own tea-dyed, coffee-dyed, echo-dyed papers. This one is Ida B. Wells. She's one of my favorites. I have to say, I learned so much on this journey. I learned about women who I'd never heard of. I learned about the things that they accomplished that I was not aware of. Certainly, I was never taught in history. And I think it's a shame that we do not teach history to include women of color. Maybe we do now, but certainly when I was growing up, and even when my daughter was growing up, and she's 45 now, they did not teach history about these incredible, remarkable people. So this is about Ida B. Wells, very inspirational. And this one actually opens up. There's quite a few different pages and different ways that you can read it. And this one is finished, so it slips right on in here. More pages. This is one of my favorites. It's actually a spread, and this is dedicated. The spread here is dedicated to Althea Gibson, who was an incredible tennis player and someone who persevered in all kinds of setbacks in order to achieve her goals. And as you can see, she became a very renowned athlete. I love this prayer. Shout my name to the angels, sing my song to the skies, anoint my ears with wisdom, let beauty fill my eyes. This has a fun little pocket that has a card in it. The little index card is about Vernice Amour. She's a U.S. Marine who was highly decorated, served in Afghanistan, served in in Iraq. She flew attack helicopters in the invasion of Iraq and was honored with the Operation Iraqi Freedom Award. Moving on. Again, lots of fun pages that my daughter can write on or decorate herself. This is a great page dedicated to Sister Rosetta Thorpe, who was really the very first blues singer. We don't hear much about. In fact, you'll see that a lot of the people that I've chosen to grace the pages of this journal are people that I had never heard of before. This is a really great little card. This is about Lucy Terry Prince, often credited as simply Lucy Terry. She was a settler, an American settler, and she was a poet. She was actually kidnapped in Africa and enslaved and was taken to Rhode Island. Her future husband purchased her freedom before their marriage in 1756. She composed a ballad poem, Bar's Flight, about a 1746 incident. It was preserved orally until being published in 1855. It is considered the oldest known work of literature by an African American. I really enjoyed reading more about her and her work and some of her poems, which are amazing. This is also a really great inspiration. This is a lady by the name of Sigourne Truth. And she actually also was a major writer and a poet. She was also a very powerful public speaker. So I've dedicated an entire page to her. And as we go forward, a lot of these you'll see are my stencil dyed paper, and I've done a lot of sewing in this book. This is one of the echo dyed pieces. I have a lot of clips in here, just kind of holding everything together. These are a couple of my favorite little tags. This one is great. This is, you've probably heard of Nina Simone. She was never afraid to speak her mind about social issues. And through her music, she tackled some of the biggest civil rights issues of her time and was very much a part of the civil rights movement and the Black Pride movement. And this one is great. This is one of my favorites. Did you know that the very first ever home security system was patented by a Black woman? And this woman of color was amazing because she just never gave up. She created this drawing. Her name is Marie Van Britten Brown. She created a schematic basically of her invention. And when she went to go patent it originally, she was told that Black people were not able to get a patent on an invention. But she dreamed big and she just kept on working at it. And she actually ended up getting her patent. In 1969, it was the first closed-circuit television security system that was ever invented. So that's one of my favorites. Again, one of those who knew, because I know I certainly did not. A lot of inventions that we enjoy today were created by women of color. This is a page about Maggie Lena Walker. She played a very important role in making Richmond, Virginia, the cradle of Black capitalism. She was definitely an entrepreneur in the early days. In the late 19th and early 20th century, she's best known as the first Black woman bank president in the United States, and quite a few other accomplishments. She also was at the height of the powerhouse. In the 1920s, she provided financial services to 100,000 members of the society founded in the 1850s called the Independent Order of St. Luke. And before the Great Depression, this organization was realistically the largest employer of professional white-collar Black women in the country. very, very interesting and inspirational. This page has a little portfolio that comes out, has a clip that you can take off, and it contains a tablet and a couple of cards here that go down into this little window envelope. This one is really fun. This is Jane Bolin. We may have heard of her. She was a trailblazer for women of color who practiced law. And she was the first Black woman to ever graduate from Yale Law School and became the nation's first Black woman judge in 1939. So this is a fun little portfolio. I like to just clip it here. It goes out into this little band. Again, quite a bit of sewing. This was a poem that I found that I just really loved. It says, I am Black woman. I am Black woman, tall as a cypress, strong, beyond all definition, still, defying place and time and circumstance, assailed, impervious, indestructible. Look on me and be renewed. And this is from I Am a Black Woman by Mari Evans. Sorry for the little bit of glare there. This is one of my favorites. This is actually my favorite poet, Maya Angelou, and I felt that she deserved an entire spread. Maya Angelou is still inspirational today. Her family continues to publish her poetry, even though she passed away. But she has 50 honorary degrees. And in my opinion, Still I Rise is one of the most profound pieces of literature that I've ever read. And I think every woman can relate to that, and in particular, women of color. This is about Zora Neale Hurston. She's considered one of the most preeminent writers of the 20th century. This is a little excerpt from something that she wrote, which is called From Their Eyes We're Watching God. Here is peace. She pulled in her horizon like a giant fishnet, pulled it around the waist of the world, and draped it over her shoulder. So much of life in its meshes. She called in her soul to come and see. Just amazing. This is a card in here that it is about Phyllis Wheatley, who was kidnapped from Senegal at the age of 8, was enslaved in the United States in the 1760s. And as a person enslaved in the household, she was actually given an unusual literary education. And she went on to become one of the most renowned writers. She published a book of poetry. She also became famous in England. And I guess more importantly, she actually won a Pulitzer Prize for her work in poetry. I've included some music sheets, several different types of paper that I've decorated. This is a really fun one too. This is Mary Mcleod Bethune. I hope I pronounced that correctly. And this has a little clip on it, and it opens into a trifold, which talks about her achievements. Mary lived for 80 years. During most of that time, she worked tirelessly to help her people, and even today, her legacy lives on. She was an extremely determined person, and her primary focus was education. I am my mother's daughter, and the drums of Africa still beat in my heart. They will not let me rest until there is a single Negro boy or girl without a chance to prove his worth. I just really thought that was very remarkable and extraordinary, as with all of the people I have chosen. And there's, like I said, there's so many more. This is awesome. This is Carol Jameson, and she was one of the very first African-American astronauts. This is a really cool little folio. Don't let anyone rob you of your imagination, your creativity, or your curiosity. It's your place in the world. It's your life. Go on and do all you can do with it and make it the life you want to live. Mae Jameson. And this one I have included a little card in here. The best way to make dreams come true is to wake up. And I just love everything about her. And I really enjoyed not only researching her accomplishments, but putting together a little something to celebrate her. This one just clips on here, and I thought it was great because I found this children's book that actually depicts a lot of different professions, and quite a few of these pictures show people of color in these incredible positions, and which as it should, and it needs to happen more and more often. Interestingly enough, it was hard to find, which I found quite sad. This is just a little collage I put together. Again, some additional pages of sheet music and so forth. This one is great. This is about a woman who was the first Black woman to win the Nobel Peace Prize for her environmental work in Kenya. And this one slips out like this. It has a really great story, and I loved that I was able to find some really awesome embellishments that kind of helped to tell her story. This was a really fun poem called Women of Color. Our backs tell stories no books have the spine to carry. And that I could not have summed that up any better. This is a little bag that inside it I've put this card that talks about Dr. Jeannie Noble. She was an educator and writer, and she's the holder of many firsts to her name. She was the very first African American to study and write about the experiences of female African Americans in college, and to become a board member of the Girl Scouts of America, to serve the U.S. government's Defense Department Advisory Committee on Women in Services, and to receive tenure as a professor at the New York University. So I thought that was a really cool one. Don't worry that you can't give your best. Don't worry that you can't give your kids the best of everything. Give them your very best. She had some really incredible quotes and was very dedicated to the cause of education as well. That just slips down in there. Keep going. There's a little card that talks about Mary Mahoney. She was the first licensed Black nurse in the United States in 1879. She couldn't work in the hospital, though, because of discrimination in the 19th century, so she spent years as a private nurse instead. And later, she founded the National Association of Colored Graduate Nurses in 1908. And she also became one of the first women who ever registered to vote. This was multi-talented Frances Harper. She was a poet, a public speaker, a writer, and a teacher who devoted her whole life to work the Anti-Slavery Society. She was an orphan to equally activist parents. And 100 years before Rosa Parks, she refused to give up her seat on a segregated bus. We didn't hear about her, did we? She voiced the famous moving speech, "We are all bound up together," and founded several powerful campaign groups. And I found that speech to be so incredible that I actually printed it out and included it in here. So these just slip in here like that. This one has a little butterfly, so it gets caught a little bit. Again, more blank pages, lots of room to add additional folks, or for my daughter to add her own thoughts and her own wisdom to this. Daisy Bates helped start one of the first Black newspapers that was entirely dedicated to the civil rights movement. The civil rights activist served as president of her local NAACP chapter and eventually played a huge role in ending school segregation in Arkansas by organizing the Little Rock Nine, a group of 9 Black students who you may have heard of who integrated Central High School. But although we know that story and we've we've learned a bit about that as part of the integration efforts. I had never heard of Daisy Bates. Her name should be in all history books and celebrated. One of my favorite authors, again, is Toni Morrison. She became the first Black woman to win a Nobel Peace Prize for literature for her novel called Beloved. It's a beautiful, beautiful book. Again, more pages. I've included a few maps. This is actually another young lady. While Rosa Parks made history for all the right reasons, and certainly we know about Rosa Parks, Claudette Coven refused to give up her seat on the bus months before Parks did. She was only 15 years old at the time, so why isn't her name mentioned as frequently as Parks? She said, "My mother told me to be quiet about what I did. She told me, let Rosa be the one. White people aren't going to bother Rosa. Her skin is lighter than yours, and they like her." She told the publication that in her heart, she knew that Parks was the right person to become the heart of the civil rights movement. Well, I will tell you, Claudette Coven, you are a hero in my book as well. This is a bookmark that I made that she can use however she wants. This is a folio that I made, basically, I don't know why it's stuck there, about Gwendolyn Brooke. She was the first African-American to win a Pulitzer Prize. She was appointed Poet Laureate, consultant in poetry, to the Library of Congress in 1985, which she had to wait a pretty long time. My aim is to write poems that will somehow successfully call all Black people. I wish to reach Black people in pulpits, Black people in mines, on farms, on thrones. And I've filled this with some little pieces that are actually excerpts from a lot of her poetry. This one just really, I thought was so neat. "We real cool, we love school, we lurk late, we strike straight, we sing sin, we think thin gin. We jazz June, we die soon." Her poetry was just so profound. And again, another person that I just cannot imagine why our kids are not taught about these folks in school. And continuing on, this is a page about Alexa Kennedy, who became the first Black woman neurosurgeon in the United States in 1981. She saved thousands of lives, mostly. I don't have an answer for that. And that was Siri deciding to talk with me. Sorry about that. She was also named Teacher of the Year by the Children's Hospital of Michigan. And this is one of my all-time newest heroes. You may remember Amanda Gorman, who gave the poetry reading at the inauguration of Joe Biden. And Amanda is an amazing young lady. I call her extraordinary as well. She's an award-winning writer. She graduated from Harvard. She was born and raised in LA. She's received a Genius Grant from OZY Media, as well as numerous recognition. And I love what she says here. Quiet isn't always peace. And the norms and the notions of what just isn't always justice. I've also included in this one, The Hill We Climb, which is the poem that she read at the inauguration. She became the sixth and youngest poet at age 22 to deliver a poetry reading at a presidential inauguration. And I've read it, several times over, and I continue to read it. It's so inspiring and so beautiful. But I really like Amanda. "For there is always light, if only we're brave enough to see it, if only we're brave enough to be it." And certainly Amanda Gorman is a light. That's why I put it by the page called Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. What a star. And an extraordinary young lady. So this is also a really cool piece. This is about Anne Lowe. She was the first African American to become fairly renowned fashion designer. So I've added some things here that denote, sewing and dressmaking and so forth. All the pleasure I have had went to my sewing, she says. And she actually was a seamstress for some extremely famous people. And I look at this picture and I think, boy, she was quite the fashionista herself. I love her look. She actually created the wedding dress for Jacqueline Kennedy. But anyway, very cool. Moving on. This is a little notation for Angela Davis, champion for racial equality back in the 60s. She's also written numerous books. This is actually something that my daughter shared with me quite a while ago that I feel, and I've shared it with quite a few people as well. It is the most profound drawing that explains to people the difference between equality and equity. If we think about equality, all three of these people are trying to see the baseball game, but they all three have the same size of a step stool. So yeah, this guy can see pretty well, and this child can barely reach over, but this person can't see at all. So what's equal about this? They have an equal opportunity, but what they don't have is something that actually gives them equal ability. And here's what equity should really look like. He doesn't really need a stool because he can see over the fence. This one just needs a small stool because now he can see. But this guy needs two stools, and that's equity, the difference between equality and equity. And this has just really, really resonated with me. And again, I've shared it with so many different people who have expressed to me that they really got a lot out of that and they really learned something by it. This is a piece about Anne Duverny. She is an award-winning director who in Hollywood who shines her light on Black history and documents the raw experiences of the Black community. A contemporary, I would say, who's making such a difference in movies like Selma, When They See Us, and 73rd. It's just incredible, the work that she has done. And I love what it says on her shirt. I am my ancestors' wildest dream. I'm not going to continue knocking that old door that doesn't open for me. I'm going to create my own door and walk through that. I really appreciated her. These are some of the movies that she has been involved with. And this one just gets, I can do that later. We're almost done. This is a page about Wilma Rudolph, who went to the Olympics in 1960. She was diagnosed with polio at a very young age, but she set the world record in the 200-meter race, and not winning one, but winning 2 gold medals. So many stories like that. This lady I really love. Tamara Burke is her name. She is the Me Too lady. She basically started the campaign called Me Too. She is breaking the silence on millions of women's sexual abuse stories and bringing down powerful men in the process. I just loved everything that I read about her. What an incredibly brave young woman. This lady, C.J. Walker, Madam C.J. Walker, was the first Black woman millionaire in America. She made her fortune by creating her own hair care products, specifically designed for Black women. Her parents were slaves. She was inspired to create hair products after an experience with hair loss. And she created something called the Walker system of hair care. And She is a self-made millionaire. She used her fortune, though, to fund college scholarships for women at the Tuskegee Institute and donated large parts of her wealth to the NAACP, the Black YMCA, and other charities. This is about Ella Baker. I don't know if you've ever heard of Ella Baker. She was a civil rights activist, and she worked for several different organizations in her life. She graduated valedictorian from Shaw University, and she actually started the Young Negroes Cooperative League. She started working for the NAACP in 1940 and co-founded what's called the Organization in Friendship, which was set forth to fight against Jim Crow laws in 1955 and 1957. She actually helped to organize Martin Luther King's Christian Leadership Conference and the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. She became one of the most pronounced human rights activists in the country during that period of time. Dorothy Height was a civil rights activist also, who's considered the unsung heroine of the civil rights era. She advocated for improving the lives of Black women and also pushed for women's rights in general. In addition to leading the National Council of Negro Women for 40 years, she helped found the National Women's Political Caucus alongside feminist activists like Gloria Steinem. She received the Congressional Gold Medal of Honor for her work in 2004. This one is filled with musical cards. There's several folks here that you may or may not know of. This is Gertrude Rainey. She's known as the mother of the blues. She was actually the first woman to use blues in her musical performances. And this one you may recognize is Marion Anderson. She was the first Black person to ever perform at the Metropolitan Opera in 1955. Doesn't seem that long ago, does it? She was also the first Black woman invited to perform at the White House in 1986. President Ronald Reagan gave her the National Medal of Arts. This doesn't require a whole lot of commentary. Emmett Till's mother was more than her grief. She was a world changer. And if you've never really went and looked up what Emmett Till's mother did after her son was murdered, she was truly an extraordinary woman. And then here we have Elizabeth Keckley. She became the personal dressmaker and close confidant of Mary Todd Lincoln, the wife of Abraham Lincoln. I've put together a whole little portfolio about her here. She accomplished quite a bit. She was also a civil activist. She was an author, and just again, another remarkable woman. And here I've included something that I thought really summed it all up. Real leaders are ordinary people with extraordinary determination. And I think every person in this has shown that. And then lastly, this page here is dedicated to my daughter. And it says, Lindsay Nelson, extraordinary daughter, mother, wife, and friend, who is destined to make an extraordinary impact on the world, one breath at a time. A woman who continues to embrace life with passion and an unyielding optimism for positive change. She loves giraffes and she loves Lion King. So, and I love her. Anyway, that is the end of the Extraordinary Women of Color Mega Journal that doesn't even close. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm sorry it was so long, but I did want to share it. A lot of people have been asking me about it, so I did want to take the time to share it with you. So thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful holiday, and I'll see you soon.